Welcome to the Thriving Outside the Box podcast. Join me, Dr. Kimberly Grosher, a licensed psychotherapist, executive coach, and yoga and mindfulness meditation teacher, as I shed light on the stories of leaders and entrepreneurs across industries who have not only dared to create their own path in their careers, businesses, and lives, but found a way to do it while thriving mentally, physically, and spiritually. I hope you walk away with the inspiration to do the same. All right, welcome to the Thriving Outside the Box podcast. I'm Dr. Kimberly Grosher. Thank you so much for joining me today with our guest, Alex Davis, CPA, CFP, and all those good things.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Dr. Kim.
Alex and I, just for a little context, we met on a couple of retreats. We both went to a retreat called Limitless, put on by a coach, Bridget Simmons. And we just really connected, as well as with another group of women, just around building and growing and really creating lives that we all want to be living and living outside of the box, which was kind of like an inspiration for this podcast. So Alex, please tell our listeners a little bit more about you.
I am Alex Davis. As Dr. Kim mentioned, I'm a CPA, a CFP, which is a certified financial planner, and a certified public accountant for those of you who do not know. I am also a licensed life insurance agent, and basically I support entrepreneurs build wealth through strategic tax planning, but also changing their relationship with money so they can really build a life not only that's profitable, but that they actually desire and want to live.
Awesome. Amazing. So I'm so happy to have you with us today to kind of talk a little bit about your journey, but also like what being outside the box means for you and how you are paying attention to your wellness while you do this, right? Because we know this is not an easy journey. So Alex, what does being outside of the box for you mean?
Really forging your own path and figuring out what it is that you desire. I know for me personally, I grew up being told this is how it works. This is how you should do certain things. And I took that to heart a lot. And what I realized is I was living a version of someone's life, but it wasn't mine. And so for me, living outside of the box is really choosing your journey. And so it's whatever's on your heart. And so for me, I'm a woo-woo accountant. And so that means me not having a traditional 40-hour work week. It means that I'm probably working only 15 to 20 hours a week, and I'm spending more time with my family. And in this season of my life, and that's the other thing, having whatever season in your life that you want. And in this season, I'm in very much personal development, healing journey. And so I bring in a lot of getting myself back to a happy, healthy, and whole state. And I feel like it's different because a lot of people don't prioritize their health, their physical health, their mental health, and all of that. They go. And I'm just no longer part of that life.
I wish you all could see her expression right now. It's like, been there, done that. Not for me. Let me ask you this. What did the box look like for you specifically? Like in your life and your journey? What does the box consist of?
So it was the traditional go to school, college. And so I'm already not a traditional, I guess, professional because I was actually a teen mom. I had my daughter a couple months after graduating high school. And so I've never been traditional. I was in college, but I was also raising an entire human being and working full time and navigating college as well. And so in the box, it was like, okay, you're going to college, you get your degree. Now you go and you get a good job, right? The good job, the good benefits, and you work up the corporate ladder. And so that's what it looked like. And that's what you do. You get the big check, you buy the house. So I did that. I bought the house, I had the car, all the things. And so that was me living inside the box.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so now your box, you started to say, looks like you making your own hours. I think you say you don't work 40 hours a week, right? It's like 15 to 20 hours a week. You say you're a woo-woo. CPA, CFP, right? So what was that turning point for you when you said, this no longer works and I had to try something that maybe I don't know what this looks like. I don't necessarily have an example.
I feel like it's been more recent. Like I knew I knew that I wanted something different. Probably, I think like many people, the pandemic brought out a lot of things when you realize, ooh, I don't like the way this works because you were forced to stop. And that's what happened to me. Now, before the pandemic, I had my second daughter in 2018. And so there was a sprinkle of it because I realized I was like, ooh, with my first daughter, I mentioned like I was in college, I was moving up the corporate ladder. Well, I did not have a healthy relationship with my daughter, my oldest daughter. In fact, I'm rebuilding it now. Thank goodness I have better tools to be a better parent, a different parent. But when I had my second daughter, I'm like, yeah, I actually don't want to have the same type of relationship that I have with my first daughter. I actually want to be present. And when my kids are talking to me, I actually want to be in the room physically and mentally and all the things. And so in 2018, I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, I could start my own business. And so in 2019, I started the business, but it was on the side. And then when the pandemic hit, I said, okay, I have to get serious about this. I cannot be stressed like this. I cannot repeat my prior 10 years in public accounting. And then that's when I formulated the plan to say, I'm getting out. I'm starting my own business. And then at that point, I realized, I want to start my own business, but all I knew was corporate public accounting. So I ended up going in full time in my business in 2021, October 2021. And for about a year, I was doing it the way that I had seen it done before. So basically, I was like, oh, I want to get outside the box, but I was still doing it the same way and I was burning out. And so it was like at that point that I realized, well, actually, I don't have to continue to do it that way. And it's so funny. The retreat in Limitless actually was a deeper catalyst of it because then I saw other people doing it different. And I was like, oh, actually not out here by myself. There are actually other people that are building businesses and they're seeking support. They're not trying to do it all by themselves. And it just looked different. I'd never been in an atmosphere like that.
Let's segue from there, right? You mentioned like getting in community with people who are doing it, right? Even though that maybe that wasn't in your immediate community. So tell us a little bit about how community has helped you thrive.
Community has completely changed my life, gosh, in so many ways. In one way, it was, again, seeing that, okay, I'm not out here by myself. I think a lot of times, especially when we're Black women, high achieving, a lot of times we're the only one, just statistically,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Correct,
backed
right?
by research, yes.
Backed by research. And so you're already feeling alone when you're doing corporate things, college, all the things. And then you get into entrepreneurship and it's really lonely because it takes a certain amount of courage to say, you know what? I'm actually going to be a full-time entrepreneur. It's scary. It takes a lot of bravery, even sometimes medication. I don't know, but it's a lot, right? And so it was just being able to see that there are other people that are actually doing this and they're successful at it. And so that's the one thing. It was like, okay, I got to see that I wasn't alone. And then the resources. Like once you start getting to certain levels, and iron sharpens iron. And it's so important to be around other people because, and again, with us high achievers, we are used to pouring into others. And if you don't get into spaces where people are pouring into you, like your life force is drained out of you and you have to have it filled up. And so I think being around other women, like that's what has been happening for me. Like my cup is being filled. And so I feel like when there are times where my own drive couldn't get me over the hump, I have women around me. They're just like, hey, you told me you were going to do this. What's happening with that? Checking in on me. But also, hey, here's a resource. I don't know if you saw this. The Goldman Sachs program. It was because a mutual attendee of the retreat told me about it. I'd never heard about it. And just for context, Dr. Kim and I are in cohort 5 of 1 million Black women for the Goldman Sachs program, very prestigious program. And I would not have been in it if it were not for that connection. And she shared it with me. No one in my immediate circle would have known that. So, I mean, there's other things, but I would say those are like the top 2.
As we both have said, and you mentioned in this conversation that like community is so important and being able to connect to like-minded people who maybe aren't on exactly the same path as you, but there are some similarities and you can kind of share resources and guidance. And there's that accountability is so important. Yes.
Yes. The accountability is incredibly helpful because I feel like, again, usually we can push ourselves and it gets to a certain point when you have all the hats going on. There's a lot going on. And sometimes you do just need that extra push of someone checking in with you to make sure it's getting done because there's only so many balls that you can keep in the air at one time.
Absolutely. And sometimes, like that community comes in and tells you like, hey, I know you want to do all of the things. But maybe focus on this, or maybe like put it together this way, or maybe use this resource so that you can focus on this.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I know that has been so helpful.
Same, same.
Yeah,
Because we have all the ideas, and it's like, wait a minute, let's be intentional, strategic about it a little bit.
exactly. Okay, so you mentioned that community has helped you with thriving. What else would you say is important to thriving outside of the box?
For me, having regulating your nervous system, which I never really talked about when I was in corporate, but being able to, like, now having time to actually explore and figure out, okay, why am I anxious? Like, let's look into it a little bit more. And so regulating my nervous system, and so figuring out what tools help me with that. And so for me, therapy and breath work. I need both. I will probably forever have either a therapist on standby and doing some sort of breath work. Yoga is helpful as well, like physically moving your body, and then even coaching. Coaching has also been like just like life changing for me, because I feel like therapy a lot of times is going back into Dr. Kim, you'll be able to speak to this more than me, but therapy I feel like looks at the trauma and sometimes like the root of some of the issues. Where I feel like coaching supports you in getting to a destination that you want to go to, but based on your own words. So like you're actually speaking to someone and they're able to reflect what you're saying back. And so that has been incredibly helpful just for me. And so my toolbox, I use that. And that helps me with keeping myself calm, because otherwise I can be a little high strung and I'll get caught up in my head a lot. And so those tools allow me to get back into my body and actually make decisions that are truly from, I said earlier, like, what do I want? It gets me to get back in touch and hear what is really coming from internally, because there's a lot of noise out there. And I just know for me personally, I spend a lot of time, and still sometimes I get caught up in what I think I should be doing based on what I'm hearing or outside, as opposed to being like, no, internally, we all know what our calling is. Like we can sense it. And this, just like my toolbox allows me, like, okay, I actually hear it, and then taking the action to make that happen is, yeah. So yeah, figure out what your toolbox is. You need that.
So your toolbox sounds robust. I love the therapy and the coaching, right? Because I think it's important to also hear from you, like, about how therapy and coaching have differed for you, in your life and in your toolbox, like what the difference has been for you. And I love that you illustrate that, because there's like room for both.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure I'll get to a point where maybe I don't need the therapist, but I had a lot of trauma going on. Awareness put me on. I actually shared some of the things that I've overcome. And I think a lot of us do. We are walking around as completely unhealed, and we're doing amazing things. Like, we are knocking it out of the park, but we're doing it with these heavy weights on us. And I just think, and I feel like for me personally now, I'm making these achievements. I have these achievements, but it doesn't feel as heavy because I've been able to lift a lot of the burden through the work that I've done in therapy and uncovering these things, and even breath work, just being able to dig a little bit deeper in the subconscious. And like I said, it's changed my life. I'm a better parent. I feel like one day I'll be a better spouse. Hey, I'm single at this time of the recording. But like, yes. I've just become generally a better person. Like, I feel it when I walk into a room. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not the same person. And sometimes I feel like, is this actually happening? But it is. And when you really take the time to do the work, and for me, like I said, I've been very intentional. It may be a time where I get back to working more than 40 hours a week or 30 hours a week or whatever, depending on how I want to. But right now in this season, I love this development that I'm able to actually participate in, because I know this work right now is just going to catapult me in the future.
Amazing. So I just want to shine a light on it for a moment. Shine a light on, right? I want to shine a light on the achievements that you have made since you have focused on your wellness, since you have developed your toolbox, right? Since you have made therapy, coaching, breath work, community, all these tools like such an important part of your life, like not just your business, but your life. So tell us about some of those achievements.
Oh, so I'll just say in like the last 12 months, I'm up for the Sarasota Chamber Minority Business of the Year. And that's just a huge accomplishment. I've had over 4 speaking engagements. I am an Amazon bestselling author. I'm in the Goldman Sachs. And there were like over 4,000 applicants. Dr. Kim is in the same cohort, over 4,000 applicants, and there are 151 women selected. And so like that's a very low percentage to have happened. And I'm sure that there are other things that I'm missing because I just keep going and going and going. But that's in a year. That's just in a year that these things have happened. I've increased my income in my business. I've been able to actually humble myself and apologize to my oldest daughter for things that you do the best that you can as parents. But I know that there are areas where I did not support her fully and that where I may have hurt her. And so I'm able to actually go in and talk to her as a person and apologize. I can only imagine what my life would be like if my mom was just like, I'm sorry for that. Yes. And so I've been able to do that. And I have no idea how that's going to impact her in the future, but I know what it would have done for me. I ended a very toxic relationship. I was in for over a decade. It was just unhealthy and I deserved more. And I finally was able to leave it. And it was because of doing the work.
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us and being vulnerable. And also, I just love how I think a lot of times people think like, oh, if I pay attention to my wellness, if I pay attention to my mental health or physical health, I'm going to fall behind. I'm sacrificing moving forward or accomplishing, or it's really going to hold me back. And can I afford to do this? And I love like how you just pointed out, you honing in, walking in your purpose, getting support for that purpose, and purpose being on different levels, right? Not just like business or professional, but like personal and, relationship purpose. And you being able to walk in that has really like set you up for like success on so many different levels.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And I feel like for sure that was me where I didn't. And then this was years ago when I was in public accounting. I had like lost 25 pounds. My hair was shedding like I owned a dog. It was terrible. And I had someone say, oh, you just need Xanax for this anxiety. And so I did it for a moment. But then I started, therapy. That probably was like 7 years ago. And I noticed a shift. And so I think, obviously, I mean, I'm OD. I go, it's like all or nothing sometimes with me. So it's like, okay, girl, you need all that. I may not need all of this support, but it has accelerated me. So I think sometimes even if you start a little bit, even if it's taking 5 minutes in the morning for yourself, or maybe it's just getting the therapy, especially when when something feels off and it's taking that moment to stop, because it really does. It almost is like it charges your battery. Because right now it's like, yeah, you're operating, but you're like at 60%. What would happen if you fully charged your battery and you got to 100%? Like you could just go that much faster, that much, harder. And I think that's like when you start thinking about that in it that way, maybe, as I know for me, it's like, I know I have to do something, because you just get to a certain point and then it's like a brick wall, you stop.
Let that marinate for a moment, Like you say, even taking like the small steps, like one thing in place, maybe it's 5 minutes in the morning. Or if it's not in the morning, maybe it's taking a 20-minute walk in the evening. Maybe it's getting a therapist. But just getting a moment to like pause, reflect, or put yourself in a position where you are encouraged to reflect and to pause and then proceed. Instead of just going. And then there's never any recharge. There's never any pause. There's never any reflection. And you're just going, and then you look up one day and you're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
This is not where I was trying to go.
The pauses are necessary. And especially, when you're women, once you start getting to certain ages, like our health. And that's the thing that I think sometimes we don't consider. We just take for granted, we'll just take time tomorrow. But especially as Black women with the heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, gaining weight, like we really have to be mindful. We get one body. And we have to take time to nourish it. And starting small, it just helps, because what happens is you'll start noticing the difference. And once you start noticing the difference, it's like, I really want to go back to how I was operating.
Yes. Yes. I often tell my clients, I'm like, you just need a frame of reference. So like, let's do an experiment. Let's just try this and see how it feels. Because if you like how this feels, it's much easier to come back to like the experience or the feeling than it is to like the thought or the cognitive, like, oh, this is what I should do. This is what they said to do. This is what, I'm going to try to do. There's the feeling and you're like, oh, I want that feeling. I'm going to do what I have to do to get back to that experience or that feeling.
Yes, that is spot on. I love that you give your clients that. It's like, once you go back, you don't go back. And so it's like, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. So anything else you think that you would want our listeners to know?
Oh my goodness. There's just so much, but I just cannot emphasize enough prioritizing your mental and your physical health. I cannot. It is so important for not only your personal life, but your business, your career, and even your future and your finances. I know Dr. Kim and I have had, talks before of just about how much this also affects your finances. And so when you don't take time to pause, most likely if you're one of those people that you're going, a lot of times I find that my clients don't look at their money. They're like, oh, I'm not going to really budget. They're not really looking at retirement options. That sometimes it's like, okay, the taxes are just thrown together at the last moment and you're leaving money on the table. And so it's so funny is how you do one thing in life often is how you do another. And so being mindful to take that time and really, really just take that time with yourself to figure out what it is that you need, taking that pause, and then also making sure that you're paying attention to your finances as well, because they're so linked. And so that's just something I would also bring to the attention is, be mindful of how it could also be impacting your finances, which is impacting your future. And then it's like this reciprocal thing because now your finances are impacting, but now it's impacting your health because you're stressed and you're like, oh, I don't have time to stop because I need to make money. And it's like, take the pause to really regroup. And then my last thing I would say is get support. Quit feeling like you're the Lone Ranger, the lone wolf, like you have to do it by yourself. There are so many amazing qualified professionals out there, and then just asking for help. Raise your hand and seek support or referrals for support.
Awesome. So as we get ready to close out, I just want you to share a little bit more about your business, what you offer, and how our listeners can get in contact with you.
Yes. So I have a tax and financial consulting firm. And so I have a leg of my business that supports entrepreneurs in really the tax planning and the business formation, making sure that you're not overpaying Uncle Sam. He doesn't know how to use the money. I want to help you keep more of your money so you know what you need to do with your money. And so keep more of your money, but also make sure that you're doing the right thing so Uncle Sam doesn't come knocking on your door. Hello. And so I have a business that supports with that. And I work with clients on a one-on-one basis just to make sure that you're keeping more of your money to build wealth. And then I have an arm of my business where I support clients and just coaching them through building wealth, through accountability, creating financial plans that work for them, paying off debt, and really just having a safe space to communicate what's going on with your money, what do you want to see done with it, and then supporting you accelerate getting there. And you can find me. My website is agataxservices.com. That's A as in Apple, G as in George, taxservices.com. And then I'm on Instagram at Alexandria Chanel _CPA. And I'm around.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Alex. I always get so much out of our conversations, and I'm sure anybody listening did as well. So thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you next time.